Hey, folks, we are still at NG Atlanta. I am talking to Erica Stanley. She did a talk on VR in Angular.
Yeah.
Which is one of those like cool, mind-blowing idea talks, I think. Now, it's funny because I've looked into doing some VR coding, but it's usually something either on the phone or, some of these other things. And it just feels like there's so much to know. And then I wind up talking to people like you. Aishigul Yone has done a lot of stuff with it. Austin McDaniel has done a lot of stuff with it.
I actually used his GitHub repo to kind of show some of the work in Angular VR.
Oh, good deal.
Yeah. It's a really cool repo.
Yeah. But it makes it feel so much more approachable, which is exciting.
Exactly. That's the best part of it. We were just talking about how VR used to be super specific to a certain skill set, kind of like you said, a certain platform. And now with the web is everywhere.
Yep.
The browser works on everything.
Mm-hmm.
So if you can develop a web app with just a few more libraries and just a little bit more kind of understanding of VR concepts, which is all over the web right now,
right,
you can be a VR application developer.
That's awesome. So what does it take? I mean, do I have to be an artist? Do I have to be, do I have to understand like visual stuff? And
you do kind of have to understand it at a really high level, but not at the really low physics level that you had to understand in, say, the 90s or early 2000s, because there's so many libraries that help with that. So I would suggest kind of just doing a primer on like 3D stereoscopic imaging.
Okay.
But it's not hard to understand. It's really just teaching a machine to see in the same way that we see so that it can kind of replicate that for your environment. And then get involved with some 3D libraries. So you can use Three.js. That's a big one. If that's more than you want to deal with, you can always go A-frame. And that's like HTML for 3D objects.
Oh, really?
It's super simple. So if you want a sphere, you just say A-sphere. That's sphere. Like it's not, you're not doing a whole lot of complicated programming.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That is cool. So, I mean, does it all just sit on top of like WebGL or vector graphics or what?
So it sits on top of WebGL. That's kind of your foundation. And then you have to make sure that whatever browser you're using is somehow WebVR enabled. And so if you're using Firefox or Chrome, you want to turn those settings on. Otherwise, you're going to want to use a polyfill to get some of those features.
Right.
And then you're talking about whatever 3D library abstraction you're going to use. So you can go A-frame or you can go Three.js. And then the Angular libraries build on top of those.
Right. So are there VR libraries for Angular?
Yeah, there are two. One is kind of like a starter GitHub repo, and it uses A-frame like directly. And then the one that you mentioned about Austin Daniels, he's using a Three.js to pretty much simulate those WebGL components to Angular components so that you can write them in the same way that you would write any Angular module. And it looks very much like A-frame.
Nice. I'm going to take a break real quick.
Yeah.
I need to thank my sponsor for sending me out here.
Absolutely.
So Progress, they're actually here at the conference. They have a booth over in the lunchroom. Makers of Kendo UI. So if you're looking at something, I don't think they do VR, but they have really cool components for like data visualization, page layout, and stuff like that. So if you're looking for a little bit of help getting your page to look really awesome, definitely check them out, kendoui.com. But I mean, going back to the ideas behind VR or even augmented reality.
Yeah. Because very similar ideas.
Right. Augmented reality feels a little bit more like an overlay.
Yeah, on your physical environment.
Right.
So you're actually interacting with a virtual environment and your physical environment at the same time.
Right, exactly. So what kinds of things do you see people doing with this?
So that was something I mentioned during the talk, is that when we were first talking about VR on a wide scale in the tech community in the 90s, let's say, it was really just gaming and simulations.
Right.
And so you have very specific people interested in it. And now you can apply it to so many things. Education. You can apply it to kind of monitoring sports injuries. If you combine it with kind of sensors and kind of Internet of Things, you can combine it with you can actually use it to create 3D models. Because right now we're using 2D interfaces to create 3D
Right.
models, which is not as intuitive as if you were in a 3D environment creating 3D models.
Right.
So, and then there's social applications that are pretty cool too.
Yeah. You can walk up to virtual you, right?
Yeah, which is pretty cool, especially for the introverts out there.
Yep. Right. So if I wanted to just build my own VR app, I don't know if it would necessarily be a game or just some kind of experience, right? How do you get started? So you use Angular CLI to fire up your Angular app,
Right,
and then
right.
you pull in these libraries and
Pull in
import
these
them?
libraries. Probably the starter repo, that's for Angular 2, and it's a little bit older. So I would definitely go with NGX WebGL and kind of the start. And that's based on Angular 4.
Okay.
And pretty much go from there. And check out WebVR just so you understand the underlying kind of concepts. But I would just start playing with things and connecting different devices to it, connecting various kind of headsets, connecting various kind of navigation devices, just seeing what you can do.
It sounds really, really interesting. I kind of want to mess with my kids now. Strap a phone to their face. Yeah.
You should always mess with your kids. Like,
I know.
what they're there for.
That's what they're there for. Yep. So is this something that you could put into like an Ionic app or something then?
Yeah, that'd be really interesting. So there are actually some examples of NativeScript doing some of this. I've not seen a specific one for Ionic, but there's definitely some web mobile VR applications out there.
Cool.
But again, it's pretty experimental.
Right. Yeah, I'd be really curious just to see what the capabilities are. And the other thing is that I've seen a lot of VR applications that they're still based on kind of the triangle-based graphics that you get on like video games and stuff.
Yeah.
And so they're sort of realistic.
Yeah.
I mean, how detailed can you really get with these?
It really depends on your models. And the more realistic ones I've actually seen have been from Unity, which is going to be different, obviously.
Right.
It's going to have a plug-in based kind of thing on the web and then for various platforms. But they are the most realistic virtual environments I've seen on the web. But it really does depend on how detailed your models are.
Right.
So the more triangles you have, the more pixels you have, it's just like images, pretty much. The more polygons you have, the more detailed it will be, the smoother your curves and lines are going to be.
That makes sense. The other question I have is I have one of those headsets that you put the phone into.
Yeah, me too.
So does it work fine with those?
Yeah.
And with the little buttons that the Google Cardboard interface type thing?
I've not tried some of my applications with Cardboard. I've only done kind of just looking at VR images.
Okay.
But I'm going to try it now that you asked that question. But I've been playing with Samsung Gear VR mostly.
Right.
To kind of do some of this stuff. And that's one where you just kind of stick your phone in there. And it just works.
Yep, that makes sense.
You do have to make sure that the browser on your phone is WebVR enabled. So Chrome is probably going to be your best bet for like Samsung VR.
That makes sense. It does seem, though, that, when I was at CES, they had like 360-degree cameras. And so I could see you could take the picture, load it in through these mechanisms, and then, you just have the virtual experience of looking around. I mean, it's all still, but still,
And that's what I've seen on like Cardboard. I think you can do more. And I meant to say that even when you're on your mobile phone and you're using something like Samsung Gear VR, I think the Samsung browser itself is WebVR enabled too.
Very cool. Well, hopefully we've inspired a few people to go get started.
I hope so. It's fun stuff.
And I'm sure you had some demos in there in your talk. So.
Yeah, I showed a little bit of code. Yeah.
So folks, if you're looking for kind of a next stage to get started, I would recommend go watching the talk.
Yeah, absolutely. I put all of the resources I used to create the talk and anything that I thought could help get people started in the slides.
Awesome. So it's Erica Stanley.
Yeah.
How do people find you on the internet?
I'm super easy to find. I'm Erica Stanley on Twitter. I am Erica@womenwhocode.com for email, and just happy to answer any questions.
All right. Well, thanks for coming, and thanks for kind of giving us this introduction to VR.
Anytime.
On Angular.
Thank you.
Thank you.